This story begins with a desk and ends with a desk, though I wouldn't say it is technically over. Hi, my name is Robin, and this is my first YouTube video. Well, that's not completely true because several years ago I made a couple of yoga videos that no one watched, but anyway, it's the first for this channel. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, so I'm happy to be here, and I hope you are too. We will journey through a tale of death and rebirth. Not actual death in this story, but the death of my old self and the birth of the new, guided by the unexpected midwives, my children, and my desk. Journey with me as I paint one of the birth flowers for January, the snowdrop. It's a sweet coincidence that I planted the seed for this video this past January, which I will explain later. First, a little bit about me. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 5 children, aged from 7 months to 10 years old, 2 boys and 3 girls. I absolutely love to paint. It is my happy place. I wasn't born an artist, or at least I didn't have much interest as a child or teen, beyond some dabbling here and there, never believing I could ever be an artist. In 2015, my oldest daughter was born, and the stress of being a new mom inspired me to begin a quest for relaxing hobbies. My husband suggested painting. I took his advice, even though I was extremely intimidated by art and frankly unconvinced that it would stick. However, I remember creating my first painting back then and how I smiled in surprise as I realized how peaceful I felt to be in that creative zone. This was the first rebirth of a few in this tale, as I discovered hidden longings that had been hiding from myself. Our biggest challenge I had to overcome in starting out a hobby watercolor art practice was space. Our first apartment was so tiny that we didn't even have a dining table. We used folding TV trays and sat on our couch. So my first painting setup was on a TV tray. Needless to say, it was a dubious setup considering there was a mobile and curious baby around. Thus began the quest for an art desk. My first hurdle was even admitting and then declaring to myself and to my husband that I needed a desk, especially because our space was so limited. As a beginner at watercolors, I wasn't sure if this hobby would stick around long enough to deserve its own space. I certainly didn't want to spend our limited resources of money and space on an idea that would soon fade. Little did I know at the time that this mental habit of needing to feel completely justified in my choices for fear of criticism or judgment was a trauma response I would begin to heal later on. But I did know how I felt when I painted and recognized that a desk could be multi-purpose even if I did fail to continue with art. So I worked up the courage to go to IKEA and choose a desk. It felt like the first real desk I ever owned, and I was quite proud of it. Growing up, I had a small plastic folding table that I used as a desk for homework or simply sat on my bed. My first apartment in college was furnished and had a decent computer desk, but work, school, and my first relationship ate up so much of my time I never considered doing any fun hobbies on it. When I moved to an unfurnished apartment and had little money for furniture, I thought it would be fun to buy the cheapest desk I could find on Craigslist and spray paint it bright colors. But again, I had so much going on, I barely ended up using it. I felt the desk stir something within me, a promise of something more behind just being the owner of a mass-produced, visually appealing furniture that holds items and provides a space to work. As a woman who spent her life until that point playing small, trying not to take up space or, God forbid, inconvenience anyone with my needs, this was a big step. It was the first of many on this journey. Not long after I acquired this desk, I acquired another important piece to this puzzle, my first full-time job. I landed my then dream job as an elementary school counselor at a prestigious school. Cue scene for another new desk in my life, in my new office, or so you would think. Strangely enough, I arrived to my first day only to discover that they had yet to order a desk for me, and no one knew when it might arrive. So I settled for a random table, and the symbology is not lost on me, but my experience there is quite another story, so let's move on. This chapter ends with moving into a bigger apartment with my new desk and feeling like I'm starting a new life. As the proud owner of my own workspace, I found confidence and energy within myself to learn about and define my identity. The desk seemed to give structure to what was once nebulous and formless. Having a desk meant having a purpose, setting limits, and making choices. The things I kept in the desk whispered possibilities to me that I had heretofore never imagined. Now, don't get me wrong, the desk effect paled in comparison to the effect of matrescence. If you haven't heard of the word matrescence before, it means the transformative process a woman experiences when becoming a mother, encompassing physical, psychological, and emotional changes, not to mention the effect of having stable full-time employment. But the desk was really a metaphor for the structure and stabilization I was building within myself as I aimed toward creating a strong foundation alongside my husband for our family. As I addressed my own needs for creativity and structure, it brought clarity to our direction and flow. But my needs were not something I had truly ever focused on or understood well until I was in the very vulnerable state of postpartum healing. It took being literally opened up from the inside out by these little amazing beings, leaving a hole inside me that I then needed to heal. And part of that healing turned out to be this inner artist in me that was just waiting to be born herself. I was mesmerized by the possibilities the desk inspired. What did I want to do? What could I create? So I started branching out a bit more, and as life as a working mom got busier, my desk became more neglected and cluttered. My mother-in-law, bless her soul, would come over to clean and help with the kids, and my desk became a landing zone for things she didn't know where to place. Heck, I didn't know what to do with them either. Work was hard, and coming home to a baby and toddler who missed me all day was even harder. I didn't feel I had the luxury of time to create when I felt constantly behind. Painful truths began to reveal themselves to me. I didn't know how to manage my home. The clutter was overwhelming me, and being a mom, especially a working mom, was so much harder than I thought. Counseling turned out to be so much more emotionally draining than I realized, and I didn't feel I had much to give at the end of the day. Weekends were an anxiety attack waiting to happen as my desk made monstrous glares at me, begging me to answer the question, who am I, and what do I truly want to do? I didn't sit at the desk for months. Laundry sat there. Piles of papers sat there. Odds and ends with no home sat there. It was a carnival of misfits, and I was the absent ringmaster. I read Marie Kondo's book and tried to declutter as best I could, but I had a major difficulty identifying what sparked joy for me. My husband quit a bad job to learn new skills and get better work, and I conveyed to him my concern about the clutter and how I wasn't able to use my beautiful desk. And his take was that we didn't have too much stuff, just too little space. Then I became pregnant with our third child, and our life was about to turn upside down. Within days of finding out I was pregnant, our landlord gave us an unfair 3-week notice to move out. We were going to need more space anyway. We were itching to get out of Miami where we were living. We got a storage unit for most of our things, including my first desk, doubled up with my mother-in-law in her small condo for a few weeks until the school year ended, and then escaped to my parents' house a couple hours away for the summer. We were hoping my husband would land a job there and we would be able to finally purchase our first home. The idea of quitting my job to be a stay-home mom burned quietly inside me, as the prospect of being a mom of 3 and continuing on the way things were before seemed nigh impossible. My husband's job hunt, though, left us feeling like we were in a desert of opportunities. We had to come to terms with the reality that things weren't working out there. As the school year slowly approached, we had to give up the ghost, go back to Miami so I could continue working as my due date was also approaching. My mother-in-law came to the rescue again, moving completely out of her small condo so we could use it temporarily. The catch was that she had to keep her furniture in the condo, so most of what we ended up selling or giving away when we emptied the storage unit. Sadly, That included my desk. Thinking back, there might have been a tight spot for it somewhere if I had the willpower to assert myself and make a way. But I thought I hadn't made art or anything in so long. The old demons came back to haunt me with their harsh judgments about how I was so inconsistent, so flighty, and didn't have any good ideas to paint, and if I did, they probably wouldn't turn out well. All my supplies were tucked away in boxes, out of sight and out of mind, and digging out art supplies would only add to the mess I had so much trouble keeping control of. I was deep in survival mode, so I gave my desk to a friend. I remember when she asked me, "Are you sure?" and hesitating internally because I wished I didn't feel like I had to give it up. I mourned the death of a dream, of seeing myself happily painting in my own little space, and told myself it was for the greater good. Lucky for us, though, my husband made us a long table we could both use for our computers. So we split it in half, and for now I had a desk again. I didn't have much space for art supplies, but the moment I had a space of my own again, I remembered my roots and wanted to get back into painting. I missed my old desk and wanted to look for a smaller one, but I didn't let it stop me from painting with what I had. To my surprise, I made one of my favorite paintings to date at that time in the tiny space I did have. I did quite a lot of painting at that time, despite not having the space. The experience built my will, and I felt reborn. It was encouraging to recognize that I still had it within me, and to lean into the vision for the future when I would have an art space once again. Then, the unexpected happened. I was driving in our neighborhood one day when I spotted some furniture on the side of the road with a sign that said "free." Sitting there was a cute little brown desk, perfectly sized for the amount of space I had to work with in our bedroom. Not only that, it was quite similar to a desk my grandmother used to have when I was young and used to be nosy and look through her things for fun. I couldn't believe it. There was even a decent chair to boot. I put it in the trunk and came home beaming with my lucky find. There's so much that happened between finding that little brown desk and today, but those are stories for another time. I want to fast forward and tell you about this past January. Like I mentioned, when I was knee deep in my 5th postpartum healing journey, and I began to record what I thought would become my first YouTube video. And it started out with my little brown desk. So this is my special little desk, and here I am moving it back into the house after neglecting it in the garage for a while. Since moving in, I had moved my art space several different times, trying to figure out where I wanted to be. Life becomes quite fluid when adding new children to the family, so every few months it seemed we were adjusting arrangements and I couldn't quite get settled down anywhere. I would have a spot for a while and then give it up, thinking of creating something better or for more convenience of other practical matters. But deep down, I really wanted that space of my own again, and I wanted it to grow roots. But immediately after recording that, my son needed a computer desk, and I was somehow so quick to give it up once again. He needs it, I thought, and though I was sad, I didn't feel justified in showing it. So my video died along with my dream once again, because I was once again listening to the negative thoughts telling me how I was so flaky and unable to complete things, and how it wouldn't even be good if I did make a video, so why even try? Each time a child is born, there is a great transformation that takes place. Not just for me, but for all the family members. For us, this was 5 great transformations, each about 2 years apart. It was like our lives were disassembled and reassembled 5 separate times. We grew in so many ways each time, getting more aspects of our lives more in order so that we could be the best parents we could be. When we started this family, we had very little under control. We didn't know how to sleep, eat, or organize ourselves properly, much less our children. But as we experienced all our trials by fire, we slowly learned, slowly climbed out of the hole we started in. By this 5th time around, much of our life felt mostly orderly and peaceful, as orderly as could be expected with 5 young children. And now that we had handled getting our careers in order, our home was slowly coming together. We got our nutrition and physical activity on the right path. We were developing spiritually and emotionally. It was time now to get back to the beginning and make myself a desk. So here I am now, finally getting back to my happy place, feeling reborn, and I'm thinking I'll stay here a while longer this time. Stay tuned for a link to my store to purchase my art very, very soon. Thank you so much for being here and listening to my story. I'd love if you leave a comment and let me know if any of this resonated with you. All the love to you and yours.